Safety's got everything. I mean, you got to blow people up for the theatrics of it all. It causes turnovers. You got to cover receivers. Can you do that?
Oh, of course.
Play the run game, and be smart. Make all the calls. It's a pretty complicated position.
And then a lot of times, too, teams want you to be able to be interchangeable to where you're not just a strong safety, but you play free as well. I know the Bucs were like that as well under Lovie Smith.
Can you do that?
That's how we were at Florida. We didn't have a free and strong. We just had a right and left. And there were times where I played free, where I was in the middle of the field, or I was playing quarters, and there was times where I was down in the box playing strong, or rotating down with a single high safety, and I was the down safety at the time. So, that's considered a strong safety, in cover 3 and things like that. So.
With the way that college has gone, the game, the fact that it is more spread out, how does that change your role as the last line of defense?
It changes it a lot. You just got to be smarter, They like to pass in this league. Not, jumping in the run game, just being more conservative, knowing that, they might hit you with a play action, just being smart, just being more smart.
How tall? You look tall, 6'1", 6'2"?
6'1". They said 6 foot, but I think I'm 6'1". I give myself a couple more.
So you can cover a Gronkowski, in theory.
I can.
Yeah,
I can.
Who was the toughest guy for you to cover in college?
The toughest? That's hard to say. I mean, I faced a lot of
Or defend
really
in
good
general.
teammates.
I mean, even a running back that was really difficult that got to
running back.
field.
Derrick Henry's a good running back. When he gets going, that's a lot of weight.
That'd be harder to tackle than cover, right?
Exactly.
What was that like?
It wasn't terrible. I mean, I like challenges. We faced each other a few times, and we've got the best of each other a few times. So, it's always been a challenge, and it's fun. I enjoy it.
Who were some of the guys that you really looked up to in the league over the years?
As far as safeties or just people in general?
Safeties.
Safeties, I really like Cam Chancellor's play. I kind of relate my play to his, being a fierce hitter, being a run stopper, but also being, really good in pass coverage and, covering tight ends and, sometimes receivers. He's pretty much a do-it-all safety, and, I really like that about him. And, the late Sean Taylor, he's one of the best to do it.
If you're in Florida, you know about Sean Taylor.
Southeastern Louisiana.
All you young safeties say him, and he hasn't played in how long?
And he's left a mark, and that's what it's about. Playing this game. You got to leave a mark, and Ray Lewis always said that. So.
You a Ray Lewis fan too?
I am a Ray Lewis fan. I actually met him at his son's high school game.
Mm-hmm.
My team was playing his son's team, and I went out there, and one of my friends was like, "Hey, Ray Lewis is over there?" I was like, "What?" And I went over there, and he knew who I was and everything. It was cool. It was really cool, actually.
You show him the squirrel dance?
The what?
The dance. His dance that he comes out the squirrel.
He calls it the squirrel?
It's called the squirrel.
I didn't know that.
One of your big advantages as a player is how you sort of play with no fear. Do you think that will translate over to the NFL, or is it harder to almost play with that when you're going against these big running backs every week and going against these big receivers?
You gotta play without fear. Man, you can't play the game of football with fear. Like second guessing yourself. You gotta go, full throttle. But there's times where going full throttle is bad. You gotta slow down, throttle, and make the for sure tackle. Whether it's in space. And I didn't really get that concept this past year. I was trying to kill, but it was a learning experience, and you just got to be smart, playing this game at this league.
Nobody expected a whole lot out of you guys at Florida under a first-year coach and Jim McElwain. What did it mean for you to be a part of that and really engineer a season that made people believe, hey, you know what, they're getting back to where they were?
It was awesome. A few guys, including myself at the time, I was kind of questioning, is this going to work? Because, I love Coach Muschamp. I love, the whole coaching staff.
Oh, and he built a great defense,
exactly,
too, a really great defense.
And, Coach Mack came in. The first thing he said is, you got to trust me. Just trust me. He acknowledged what Coach Muschamp did, all the success that he's had. But, he's like, we're going to make a change and, just trust me throughout the process. And everything that he did, like as far as attention to details and the little things, wearing the same socks, just looking like a team, it
He
helped
got
us
on you
out
guys about socks?
about socks. Like literally, like we couldn't wear like the little scruff socks, the socks where you can roll down and make them scrunchy. We couldn't wear those. We had to wear, the issue socks, the Nike with the triangle, the orange triangle on the back. We had to look like identical, and that's what he wanted. He didn't want any individualism. He wanted, a team, and we did that, and we had a successful season.
Now that
First
attention
name
to
is
detail.
So unique.
Sorry.
What's the origin?
It's Hawaiian. I'm not Hawaiian though.
Your mom just what?
Funny story. My mom has I have 3 other brothers. She has 2 K's and 2 C's. There's Clinton, Cedric, Kelly, and me. Well, before I was born, she needed a K, to 2 C's, 2 K's. And my brother was a huge fan of Keanu Reeves. So he was like, Keanu, and she loved it, and it stuck. So
Are you a huge fan of Keanu Reeves?
I'm not. I like a lot of people call me the Matrix, but like I never knew why until I watched the movie, and I didn't really like it.
When coaches turn on your film, what's one thing that's going to pop out?
Obviously my hitting ability, but they'll also see the fact that I can cover. That I can play the game of football. I respect the game of football, and I play it the way it should be played.
It seems like in recent years, rookie safeties have had kind of a harder transition into the NFL, or even guys that are coming out of college. It just seems like they're not really, grasping onto things as well. Is that just because the game has changed a lot, or is it just because it is just such a difficult position to play and people are expecting Cam Chancellor who can do it all?
I think the game has changed. There's a lot more spread in the league now, but I think it's more of just the game speed. It's a lot faster. In college, there's a few sparks everywhere, but in the NFL, everyone's good. Everyone was that Vernon Hargraves, that Keanu Neal, or the Florida defense, or the Antonio Morris. Like everyone's good. So just getting acclimated and understanding that everyone's good there. It's a different speed.
What makes Vernon Hargraves such a special player?
His film study, in my
University of
opinion.
Southern
He
California
really,
defensive back
studies
Keanu
his
Seymour,
opponent.
table 3.
He,
University of
understands the
Southern
game. He
California
respects the
defensive
game.
back
And,
Keanu
he
Seymour,
knows what
table 3.
some of his opponents are going to do before they do it. In practice, he's calling out different things. And that's how we all are. As a unit, as a defensive back unit, that's how we were, as a defensive back unit. We're just very. No, we're good.
Before we got on Derrick Henry, she had asked you about receivers, and when they, when people say, "Can you cover receivers?" Is there one you point to as someone on your resume that you did a good job on?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I can't really think of anyone on the top of my head. But there's a lot of film of me covering receivers. In 2014, we did a lot of
Notre Dame safety,
a lot of blitzes where we blitzed the nickel back, and the safety had to rotate down front side onto the slot receiver. And we played man there. We played cover 3, and we rotated down and played what we called I can't say it right now because people listen, but where we carry certain people, and we had to basically play man. And 2015 we didn't do much of it. We played a lot of quarters and things like that, but I had a lot of opportunities in 2014 to cover slots and receivers and things like that.